Lily bolted from the room, her heart hammering in her chest as Mr. Blackwood's sinister laughter echoed behind her. She needed a plan, a way to escape this nightmare. As she dashed through the labyrinthine halls of the mansion, a memory surfaced. Her purse, with her phone inside, was in the bathroom. If she could reach it, she might be able to call for help. Her pulse raced as she sprinted through the dark, shadowed corridors, her mind frantically mapping out the path to the bathroom. She had to be quick and silent, evading Mr. Blackwood's pursuit. She glanced back and saw nothing but darkness, though she could still hear the distant sound of his footsteps and his chilling voice taunting her. "You can't run forever, Lily." She ignored him, focusing on her goal. The bathroom door loomed ahead, a beacon of hope in this twisted nightmare. She slipped inside, locking the door behind her and pressing her back against it, gasping for breath. The room was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from a small, barred window high on the wall. She quickly spotted her purse on the counter, just where she had left it. Rushing to it, she fumbled with the clasp, her hands shaking. Finally, she retrieved her phone and dialed 911, her voice trembling with panic as she pleaded for help. "Help me. Please help me. I'm trapped in a mansion and someone's trying to kill me." The operator's calm voice was a stark contrast to Lily's hysteria. "Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me your location?" "I'm at the old mansion on Hawthorne Street," Lily managed to say, her voice breaking. "Please hurry." Just as she finished speaking, the phone screen went black. The battery had died. A sob escaped her lips as she realized the gravity of her situation. She had to get out of there, and fast. As she turned to leave the bathroom, the door burst open with a force that sent her sprawling to the floor. Mr. Blackwood stood in the doorway, his eyes gleaming with malevolent triumph. "Going somewhere, Lily?" he sneered, advancing on her with deliberate steps. Before she could react, he struck her on the head. Pain exploded in her skull, and the world went dark. Lily awoke with a throbbing headache. She was tied to a chair in a dimly lit room, her hands and feet bound with thick ropes. Her vision blurred as she struggled to focus, and she saw Mr. Blackwood standing before her, a twisted smile on his face. "Welcome back, Lily," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "I see you've decided to rejoin the party." Lily's mind raced as she tried to comprehend her situation. The room was sparsely furnished with only a small table and a few scattered chairs. The walls were lined with old, tattered wallpaper, and the air was thick with the scent of dust and decay. "You must have a lot of questions," Mr. Blackwood continued, his tone almost conversational. "But let me start by telling you how I escaped prison." Lily's eyes widened as he spoke, her fear mingling with a morbid curiosity. She had to keep him talking, buy herself some time to think of a way out. "After I was arrested for Anna's death," Mr. Blackwood began, "I was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial and sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. They thought they could cure me, but they underestimated me. One night, I managed to slip past the guards and escape. I've been living under the radar ever since, monitoring you, waiting for the right moment." Lily's stomach churned with fear and disgust. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Mr. Blackwood laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Because you're special, Lily. You remind me of Anna, and because you dared to uncover my secrets." He reached up and began peeling away what Lily had thought was his face, revealing a prosthetic mask. Beneath it was the familiar visage of the neighbor from her old town, the man she had once feared. Recognition flashed in Lily's eyes. You're him," she said, her voice shaking. "That's right," Mr. Blackwood replied, his smile widening. "And now, you're going to join Anna." Meanwhile, the police were already working to trace Lily's call. The dispatcher had noted the panic in her voice and the mention of the mansion on Hawthorne Street. Officers were dispatched to the location, their sirens blaring as they sped through the city streets. Inside the mansion, Mr. Blackwood's demeanor shifted from gleeful to menacing. He picked up a small, sharp blade from the table and approached Lily, who struggled against her bonds, her fear mounting with each step he took. "You know," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "I've always enjoyed the screams of young girls. It's what drove me to do what I did to Anna. And now, it's your turn." He brought the blade close to her skin, savoring the terror in her eyes. Lily bit her lip, determined not to give him the satisfaction of hearing her scream. She needed to stay strong, to hold on just a little longer. Help had to be on the way. Mr. Blackwood's blade made a shallow cut on her arm, and Lily winced in pain, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she begged. "You don't have to do this." His eyes gleamed with sadistic pleasure. "Oh, but I do," he said, cutting her again. "It's what I live for." Lily's vision began to blur as she fought to stay conscious. The pain was overwhelming, and she could feel herself slipping into darkness. Just as she was about to lose hope, the sound of sirens pierced the night, growing louder and closer. Mr. Blackwood's expression darkened as he realized what was happening. He turned towards the door, his blade still in hand, ready to face the intruders. The police burst into the mansion, their weapons drawn as they cleared each room. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the halls, a beacon of hope for Lily. She could hear their voices, shouting orders and calling out her name. "In here!" She tried to scream, but her voice was weak and barely audible. An officer kicked open the door to the room where Lily was held, and chaos erupted. Mr. Blackwood lunged at the first officer, the blade aimed at his throat. The officer fired his weapon, and the bullet struck Mr. Blackwood in the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. The room was suddenly filled with police, their guns trained on Mr. Blackwood's lifeless body. One of them rushed to Lily's side, carefully cutting the ropes that bound her. She collapsed into their arms, sobbing with relief. "You're safe now?" the officer said softly, his voice filled with compassion. "It's over." Lily was taken to the hospital, where her wounds were treated, and she was given time to recover. The physical pain would heal, but the emotional scars would take much longer to mend. She was haunted by the memories of that night, by the realization of how close she had come to death. In the days that followed, the police pieced together the full story of Mr. Blackwood's crimes. He had been living under a false identity, hiding in plain sight. The mansion, once a place of beauty and history, had become a house of horrors. Lily knew she would never forget what happened, but she was determined to move forward. She had survived, and she would find a way to heal. The diary that had started it all was a painful reminder, but it also symbolized her strength and resilience. As she stood on the balcony of her apartment, looking out at the city that had become her home, she felt a sense of closure. The nightmare was over, and she was ready to begin a new chapter in her life. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, and though the scars would remain, she knew she had the strength to overcome them. Lily was no longer a victim. She was a survivor. Dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to our audio story. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Don't forget to like and leave a comment.